This is a First Coast News On Your Side special report. Facts, not fear.
I'm Katie Jeffries. So Mayor Curry here of Jacksonville is going to be speaking about the response to coronavirus in the Jacksonville area. So we know that he is not going to be doing it inside like we normally see. He's actually going to be towards the library this time instead of at City Hall. Likely we're going to hear him talk a little bit more about the Jacksonville stimulus program, the program that gave $1,000 to qualifying residents to help pay for their rent and mortgage payments. So we'll likely hear about that. We know that as of Monday, he says all of his executive orders for the Jacksonville area will be lifted. That includes the work from home order. So you could see more people maybe headed back to the offices on Monday. But he did say he hoped that if companies had employees that wanted to continue working from home, that those companies would work with their employees to continue to make that happen. So again, he should be speaking here momentarily. We are just standing by waiting. We know he's at the library downtown doing the press conference there today, which is different from the norm because he's been towards City Hall. Also, we know that he has made it clear that he feels Jacksonville is ready to move into the phase 2 of reopening, but that would be a call ultimately made by the governor's office. And he says he has spoken with Governor Ron DeSantis and made it clear that he feels Jacksonville is ready. So we're just kind of waiting at this point for the green light from the governor's office to move to phase 2. And phase 2 would include reopening gyms at limited capacity. I know a lot of you have been asking about when gyms could reopen. That would be part of phase 2. And again, the mayor says he feels confident that we could maybe take that step, but he's still waiting for the governor's office to kind of give the green light to move from phase 1 to phase 2. If we can hopefully maybe take a live look towards the podium here, waiting for him to begin speaking. He should, like I said, be speaking about the stimulus program. Here we go. It looks like he is getting ready. They're getting set up. And if he is ready to start talking, hopefully we can listen in. Again, this is towards the downtown area. The line behind him, likely those picking up their checks for the stimulus program. That's something that's going to be going on for a little while. Let's listen in.
First out of office press conference in weeks. Thank you for your patience. And if something goes wrong with the technology while we're out here again, this is a first here for us. I want to thank you for joining me for this update on COVID-19. On the call today is Sheriff Mike Williams, Fire Chief Keith Powers, Emergency Operations Center Director Steve Woodard. I just want to make a couple of points about a couple of things. I want to talk for a moment about consumer confidence as it relates to healthcare. We have data that says a number of people have not been, when they have chest pains or any other number of issues that may require a transport or hospitalization, those calls are down. Elective surgeries that are necessary, that maybe were scheduled before all this. I want to just remind people that it's safe to go back, schedule, and to get those things done. I also just want to give a little bit of insight as we move into these phases of reopenings and kind of things we also dealt with when we first got into COVID-19. So decisions are made. There's no playbook for this. Decisions are made based on input from healthcare experts, physicians, economic experts, mental health experts. All the decisions that are being made then and now take into account all of those things and what's in the best public health of the entire population in the city of Jacksonville. And that's what we're going to continue to do. That's how we're going to continue to make those decisions. As you can probably tell, I'm not in City Hall for today's briefing. I'm at the main library downtown, where we are distributing $1,000 payment cards to citizens in need as part of our mortgage, rent, and utilities relief program. You'll see that I'm in a mask today. Every single person that comes into this building is required, or the recipient and the people working here are required to be in masks for the health and safety of people. Behind me is a dedicated team of city employees who have volunteered to come back to work to help their neighbors in need. As of this morning, we've distributed more than $14.5 million to help Jacksonville families pay their bills and stay in their homes. Why we're doing this because of the virus and the shutdowns that came with it that brought unprecedented economic hardship to Jacksonville and families. So many of our citizens saw a reduction in pay and hours or lost employment altogether. And so many experienced growing concerns over whether to pay their bills or put food on the table. Our efforts have been successful, and I'm proud of the work the team has done. Let me read from an email I received this week from Robert, someone who came in for his appointment earlier this week. Dear Mayor Curry, I wanted to send you a note directly. I was one of the recipients of the $1,000 relief payment cards. I wanted to let you know that payment was much needed help in this time of economic uncertainty. The main reason for this email, though, is about the organization and the implementation of the program itself. The program worked. The website for appointments was easy to use, efficient. The processes and procedures downtown for the card pickup were laid out and ran smoothly. Thank you and your team for this effective program. Thank you for sharing, Robert, and thank you for your kind words about our hardworking team. It means a lot. This relief program is made possible by federal dollars from the CARES Act. I'm grateful for President Trump and his team for providing these funds to our community and to my colleagues on City Council for their tremendous support. I'm also grateful for the members of my own team here. This effort was led by Stephanie Burke out of my office. She and so many others at City Hall set up the distribution sites and put on this amazing program so quickly and efficiently. So thank all of you. Over the past month or so, we've observed data from the Florida Department of Health that shows a decline in COVID-19's prevalence in our community. As those conditions have continued to improve, we have begun to slowly and cautiously reopen parts of our city and economy. It started with the reopening of our beaches weeks ago. Last week, with the cautious reopening of restaurants and retail stores, the reopening of barbershops and salons this week, and will continue next week with the rescinding of my work from home executive order. By pulling back that order, Jacksonville is fully aligned with the statewide executive orders from Governor DeSantis and his safe, smart plan to reopen Florida. I would remind people, I still encourage you, if you can work from home, to do that. I'm in frequent conversations with the governor and will work hand in hand with his team to move Jacksonville into the next phase, into more reopenings as quickly as possible. I spoke to his team as recently as this morning. This morning, I had a conversation with the informal advisory group of business and health leaders that I announced in April. I continue to have discussions with this group to get ideas about how businesses, nonprofits can get back to business in a safe way. Testing is widely available. I want to thank the members of that group again and remind you, Daniel Davis, Nat Ford, Dr. Diana Green, Eric Green, Steve Halverson, Dr. Leon Haley, Dr. Matt Rill, Darnell Smith, Kent Sturman, Mark Van Loo, and Jenny Vipperman. They also reached out to industry leaders across all sectors and have sought input as well. So we're getting best practices and sharing information so we can all work together to get back to work in a very safe way. As I stated earlier this week, my team continues to work with departments, constitutional officers, the courts, public safety officials, and others to lay out a clear pathway to reopen government in a safe and smart way. This is a gradual process and has not and will never be as simple as flipping a light switch when everyone in city government returns to work as normal. However, progress is being made. For example, my team worked with Jim Overton, Duval County tax collector, to start a smart phase reopening of tax collector branches around the city. They recently reopened the Hogan branch location on Beach Boulevard for appointments. Again, this will be a gradual process. Our teams will reach out to city employees to let them know when to come back to work. We'll have more information on this getting back to work in the days ahead as I continue to work with our governor. One key piece to moving forward is having quality data. In support of that, we're taking action to significantly enhance our testing capacity here in Duval County. Part of the CARES Act funding we receive from the federal government will go towards standing up additional testing sites in all corners of our community. As these locations and others become available to the public, we'll be sharing that information on the city website, coj.net/COVID testing. On a similar note, I have some good news to share from our homeless service providers. In partnership with the national nonprofit Community Solutions, our city was chosen by Quest Diagnostics as one of 2 cities in the country, which included Phoenix, Arizona, where all homeless individuals would be tested for COVID-19. A total of 679 tests were performed last week at Sulzbacher, Trinity Rescue Mission, Salvation Army, Clara White Mission, Hubbard House, the City Rescue Mission, and both urban rest stop locations. Every single test came back negative. I'm grateful for the collaboration from our service providers Changing Homelessness, UF Health, and other partners who continue to do amazing work supporting individuals experiencing homelessness in our community, both during this crisis and beyond. Thank you all. Last night, UFC completed another amazing event at the ViStark Veterans Memorial Arena. Because of our amazing collaboration with UFC and ASM Global, Jacksonville is leading the world on facilitating safe and responsible sports and entertainment events in a COVID-19 world. As a result of this success, I had conversation yesterday, again last night, with Dana White. We're grateful that they're here. He is grateful how well we in Jacksonville and the state has worked with him. And he is committed that when we come to a day where we have people back in arenas to bringing top-notch UFC fighting to Jacksonville, Florida. We look forward to that. In the meantime, we've demonstrated that Jacksonville and Florida can work with organizations that want to produce high-profile events in a safe and responsible way. And everything I've seen, and he shared it with me last night, everywhere Dana White goes, every talk he has, he says, you want to get back to sports in a safe way? Who's going to work with you? Jacksonville's going to work with you. The state of Florida is going to work with you. Before we go on to questions, a few reminders. Call somebody tonight, 7 o'clock, check in on them and see how they're doing, share with them. Remember to make your mark and fill out the 2020 census. A full and accurate count is critical to ensuring our community gets the federal funding we deserve for our schools. For our schools, hospitals, roads, disaster recovery, and more. It's only 10 questions and takes less than 10 minutes. Go online at 2020census.gov to fill yours out. And of course, if you need help, there are many resources available. Please visit coj.net/recovery resources, where we continue to update information about social services, financial relief, mental health, trauma support, disaster loans, and more. With that, we'll take questions.
Amber with Action News.
Amber with Action News.
Hey, Mayor. So yesterday, the governor said professional sports teams are welcome to come to Florida to practice and play games. Are you trying to get pro sports teams to Jacksonville? You said you had good conversations last night with Dana White, but and any teams reached out already to use our facilities? And even if some or all of these games are played without fans, what will be the economic impact of having them here in Jax?
Well, clearly Jacksonville, as demonstrated by the UFC fighting here, is open for sports, done in a safe way. You know, we've got protocols set up over there to make sure that testing is happening regularly, and that there's nobody negative over there. And we'll work with any sports franchise that wants to get back. I echo what the governor said, gets back to practicing, participating. We will work with them to make sure it's done in a safe way. I don't have the numbers on the economic impact of empty arenas and empty stadiums, but obviously it would be a tremendous impact. But, you know, to the point that the governor has said, the importance of getting sports back, even if there's no spectators there for a period of time, is people are hungry for this. You know, sports were a part of people's lives, and it's a release from what you're going through. It's a healthy release from the COVID-19 stuff that we've been through. Mike with the Daily Record.
Yes, hi, Mayor. Governor DeSantis was down in Southeast Florida today talking about re-entering some of those counties into phase one. There's talk on the internet that phase two could be happening very soon. Have you spoken with the governor about when that phase two announcement will happen? And on second question on city employees, what's the ultimate goal as far as timeline goes to bring everybody in the city back to work? And will there be continued furloughs in any departments and anything along those lines?
In terms of phase two, I have spoken with the governor and his team this week about whether it's phase two or an expansion or a phase one that goes expanded beyond. You know, those are semantics for the time being, but I do expect additional expansions. My goal is next week. I said earlier this week, I shared with the governor early in the week that Jacksonville's ready to move into phase two based on all the data we have. However, that if you look at phase two in the White House plan, that doesn't mean we would necessarily do everything in phase two. We may, but we may not. We're evaluating that on a day-by-day basis. As it relates to city employees, our goal is we're working to get back next week. We're just putting in protocols, and we'll only do it when we have the right protocols in place. In other words, here's what you won't see next week. You're not just going to see wide open doors where people can be coming and going without any protocols and safe practices. Jennifer with WJXT.
Mayor, with Memorial Day right around the corner, what are you guys expecting to see, especially as more people are staying at the beaches? And what is your message to people to make sure they are staying cognizant?
Yeah, just to continue to practice the behaviors that people have on our beaches and parks as we've gone back to opening those up, and that is practice social distancing, don't congregate in large crowds. And people have done that in our parks and on our beaches, and we're just going to continue to spread that message. I know all of our beaches mayors will do the same thing, and we obviously have public safety workers out there to remind people that just to practice safe social distancing. I was out at the beach last weekend. I saw the Blue Angels out there. I had dinner out there. I had another evening where my wife and I went out for some oysters and drinks. And in both of those establishments, people were being responsible for themselves and each other. Ellen with the Jax Business Journal.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Thanks for taking my question. I was just curious if you could provide some details on what phase 2 of reopening will look like, or the extension of phase 1, kind of what we're going to see there. And then also I was curious if you've received any feedback from restaurants and retail spaces on the relaxing of the ordinance code after City Council passed that this week.
We are still evaluating what exactly phase 2 would look like, or maybe an expansion, but some of the things you can expect at a minimum would be more capacity in restaurants and retail. And the feedback I'm hearing on restaurants being able to do more outdoor seating because of the code that was waived this week in City Council, it's positive. It's really positive. In fact, I was at a restaurant last night and sat at a table, at a large table in a parking lot, and everybody was spread out. I had my whole family with me. Lou Turner, First Coast News.
And just kind of expanding the thought, what about gyms? Have you put any thought when those could potentially reopen in Duval? I mean, is the city ready now? You're just waiting kind of on a green light for phase 2?
Those are not open right now under the governor's executive order, and we were, that order stands. I know that the governor and his team are working with industry experts and healthcare experts to make the best decision with the information they have to call for a reopening that is safe. And I will be having that conversation with him again the next time we talk. We just don't have an answer right now. Hannah with WOKV.
Hi, Mayor. So I have two questions. My first one is downtown businesses are being hit hard as many offices are closed, including the courthouse, and much of the foot traffic downtown has gone down. And unlike a lot of the beach restaurants, downtown restaurants can't have tables and parking lots and sidewalk space is very limited. Is there any talk of how to help downtown restaurants and businesses in the area directly?
Well, I think as you will see employees start to come back into city buildings in the near term, and those people will obviously be dining. And as you see the next phase or an expansion of this phase where we increase capacity, the feedback that I am getting from restaurants is a 50% capacity is workable and will relieve some economic strain maybe that they have under 25% capacity because of employees, how many people are working and whatnot. This is the last question. Christopher Hong with the Florida Times-Union.
Hey, Mayor, I got two questions for you. So first of all, I noticed you're wearing a mask and you said that's mandatory to be in the library. Just wondering, where else are you and your family wearing them when you go out, and you kind of just talk about what your thoughts are on that and how you guys are implementing that. And the second question is, do you know when the new testing locations that are part of the CARES package is going to be open?
Let me answer the second part first. I don't have a specific timeline. I know that my team is working aggressively to get those up and running. But to that question, I hope that people are watching right now and people that are reading the information you're sharing is just to remind people that we have testing sites up. And, for example, Legend Center, there's been days where we haven't had high traffic there. Go get a test. It's open. It's available. Christopher, I started weeks ago with the mask thing with my family, and it was a big adjustment, especially for my kids. They still don't understand the necessity, but I mandated if we're in a grocery store, if we go into a convenience store, if we go into any space where we're going to be moving around with large groups of people that we're not usually around, or we're going to be in a place where we're maybe at a register face-to-face. Now, if I go to a restaurant, for example, last night I went to a restaurant that had so much spacing in it, so much outdoor spacing, we couldn't even sit together the way they had their tables set out. So I was at a table with my wife, my kids were at another table, and there was no one anywhere near us. And so didn't wear a mask there. Obviously can't wear a mask when you're eating, but even when you're moving around. I encourage people to wear masks. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you working with us on this unique times and how we hold briefings.
So that is Mayor Lenny Curry. He is at the downtown branch of the Jacksonville Library. He's there because that's one of the locations where people are picking up their checks, those who qualified for Jacksonville stimulus program, the mortgage and rent relief program. He says so far about $14 million has been distributed through that program. Now, you heard him talk a little bit about phase 2, saying that he hopes that maybe next week would be the point where Jacksonville could start to move into phase 2. Ultimately, that is a call that is made by the governor's office. So something we will be waiting to hear from Governor DeSantis about. And he did say that even as we would make that turn to phase 2, that doesn't mean every part of phase 2 would be implemented. They're kind of watching closely to see how things are going. We did ask about gyms because we know that a lot of you have been asking us about gyms, and unfortunately he didn't have a specific answer or a specific timeline for gyms just yet. But we do know technically that would fall under phase 2. But as you heard the mayor say, they may take bits and pieces of phase 2 if that was implemented. So, of course, we will stay on top of any new developments. If there are any more news conferences or updates, we'll bring them to you live. But for now, we're going to send you back to your normal programming.
This has been a First Coast News On Your Side special report. We now return to regular programming.